We are back inside the Octagon. John Gooden, Dan Hardy, back with you guys for our second instalment for this massive pay-per-view. UFC 214 is shaping up to be the biggest event of the year. 3 title fights top a stacked main card with exciting battles all the way through. On today's show, we will be previewing the upcoming welterweight championship fights in the co-main event and also the women's featherweight championship clash. The chosen one, Tyron Woodley, returns to the Octagon looking for back-to-back title defences. This time he will face the current #1 contender, Demian Maia. One of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners ever to step into the Octagon, Maia is in career best form on the back of a 7-fight win streak and now looks to go one step further against a determined champion hell-bent on continuing his reign on the top of the 170-pound division. Also, a new women's featherweight champion will be crowned when the most dangerous female on the planet, Cris Cyborg, takes on Invicta FC bantamweight champion Tonya triple threat Evinger. Okay, well, let's take a look at the co-main event. This one for the welterweight gold. Let's pull up the facts and the stats. Champion, challenger. This, the second time that Maia has gone after the gold, the previous time before, Anderson Silva, for the middleweight championship belt. But I'm going to highlight a few of it because these are all actually pretty interesting, Dan. Even the fact that they're so experienced, but two veteran campaigners.
Yeah. Both advanced in their age, both mid to late 30s, so they've established their games. They know what they're all about. Now, Demian Maia, as you said, coming down from middleweight, he is the bigger man and he's used to dealing with bigger men. At 6'1", he's going to be towering over Tyron Woodley at 5'9", but he doesn't have the reach advantage, which obviously is going to be useful for Woodley, being the striker out of the two of them. Experience, as you can see, both of them have a lot of experience, and if you take Demian Maia's middleweight experience away, the records are pretty much exactly the same. Okay. It's quite strange. So that middleweight experience will be very useful, and obviously feeding into this fight is used to dealing with those bigger, stronger athletes, which is key. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Look at this. Highest takedown defense in welterweight history, 95.2% is ridiculously high. Yeah. But this is the other thing that stands out to me, and I'm gonna show you how well my stat knowledge is here. So 60 successful takedowns out of 189 attempted, which is 32% success rate. Now, I don't mind a success rate at 30-something% because it shows his willingness to continue trying. Now, these two fighters are at opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to energy systems. Tyron Woodley is the short burst fighter that needs a rest to rebuild that power store before he bursts again. Whereas Demian Maia, he's the grinder. He keeps a steady pace on you that wears you down. And the longer he goes in this fight with Woodley, the better his odds get towards the end of the fight. Right. So, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing that he's got a low stat with his wrestling, because he continually tries, and he will try everything to get it to the floor, which I'm going to talk about a little later. Creates a bit of chaos. Exactly.
But just the last point before we move on from this. On paper, to me, this looks like a bad matchup for Maia.
Yes.
Do you see where I'm coming from, and do you agree?
I do see where you're coming from. Demian Maia is one of the last bastion of Brazilian jiu-jitsu in mixed martial arts. He is very much the jiu-jitsu practitioner in a sport of combat athletes, whereas Tyron Woodley has got excellent wrestling, and he's knock. I mean, look at that. His knockout percentage is ridiculous as well. He's a very, very powerful individual. So you've got to think that in order for Demian Maia to get it into his world, he has to go through 2 brick walls, the striking and the takedown defense. So it is a tough one, but on a 7-fight win streak, it's not failed him yet.
Maybe 3 walls, if you each of these powers. So, you know, you've got those and then the wrestling as well. Well, let's talk about that from the champion then, because he has really earned his title, not from his wrestling necessarily, but really it is with the concussive power that he possesses in his fists.
It is, and it's the wrestling that is his base for that. But that's what allows him to push forward.
Gives him the
flurry.
confidence.
Exactly. The thing, if you go back and watch the Woodley, the Wonder Boy breakdown, we spoke about this, we got into this in depth. But the same thing stands. It's all about right-hand focus. Everything is about driving that right hand into his opponent, no matter where he is in the fight. We see him find different ways of landing it, but most of the time it's that 2-1-2 sprint that he likes to do to kind of gather that momentum before he finds himself landing that big, powerful right hand. Against Carlos Condit and Kelvin Gastelum, he was very good at creating space with it, so pushing his opponent back and creating space in the octagon to work. And he can also take your base away. These aren't regular low kicks. These are literally take your legs from underneath you kind of low kicks. And then the Lawler fight is, again, it's more of a refined example of Tyron Woodley. He got in there early on. He did the same thing, the 2-1-2. He hit Robbie Lawler as he was coming in and got the belt straight away. So you've got to think that Demian Maia has lots of things to watch out for early on in the fight. The longer he can stay in there, the slower Woodley's going to get, and the easier it's going to be to get him to the floor and choke him out.
Well, that leads on to the point that we were making earlier. He is a purist, one of the last standing purists, and he is oh so good at that.
Yes.
But there's this big thing. You got to get it down to the mat in order to do what Demian Maia does.
Yeah.
Can he do it?
Well, he has done so far against some of the best guys around. And it's the way he does it. He figures it out. And he doesn't mind on what terms you go to the floor as long as you hit the mat. But a lot of the time you find him focusing on that single leg takedown. He dives in and he drives. We see his head on the outside a lot as well, which to an extent offers the guillotine to his opponents, and sometimes people automatically, like Masvidal does there, he wraps the head. It's a preset that we do in sparring sometimes, but against Demian Maia, you just want to refuse the ground game entirely. But he will drive you to the fence. He uses the fence a lot of the time to crush his opponent up against it or to drive them into it. Watch this. Watch how he drives forward. Now, this is something I want to talk about, and I remember I had a conversation a long time ago with Tyson Griffin. Old school UFC fans will remember Tyson. What he used to talk about, and he was on the opposite end, he was the guy that was sprawling. And as somebody was driving into him, he would actually sprawl, he would walk his legs up the fence, so they were still driving underneath him. What Demian Maia does a lot is this. As he's driving, crawling on his knees, driving forward on his knees, but he drives his opponent up, and as soon as their feet hit the fence, he can drive them upright. Yeah. And it's a really nice tactic because all he needs to do is get his hands on a leg. And from that point, it doesn't really matter what happens. He can drag people to the floor if he likes. Against Gunnar Nelson, this was beautiful as well. And Gunnar, I have to say, put up an excellent fight on the floor, but was just slightly bettered by the bigger, stronger athlete. But this is the thing I want to talk about here. So I'm just going to highlight. Let me just highlight this. So you can see there, that's Gunnar Nelson's wizard. You can see already how extended that is around his back. He's very much struggling to keep Demian Maia to his side, so he's not giving up his back. So what Demian Maia does is you'll see the left leg comes around and hooks on the far side of Gunnar Nelson. So what this does is it actually pulls his hips around to the side. Gunnar has to release the whizzer, and then Demian Maia's on your back. And another thing that you notice, a lot of the time when people find themselves on the back, the tactic is to bump them forward, to make them fall off. It's very difficult to get Demian Maia off your back. And part of the reason for that is because he's got such strong adductor muscles. He squeezes and clamps onto your body. So sometimes his hips aren't even in connection with his opponent.
Like a tailored backpack.
Exactly. He's clamped on, like a horse ride, like a bull rider. He's clamped onto his opponent. So it's difficult to shake him off. And then he does all kinds of things to break you down so then he can start threatening the neck. Against Gunnar Nelson here as well, he used some really vicious elbows. Watch this replay. It's a really mean elbow. Catches him right on the point of the chin. But what it does is it pulls Gunnar's head right back into a position where he can start to attack it.
So yes, that creation of chaos that Demian Maia brings about against Tyron Woodley's collegiate wrestling background. It's a very different style, and you found some key examples for us.
Yeah, well, what we need to do first is we need to just remind ourselves how powerful and strong he is. And a lot of the time it revolves around him getting his hands together. You can see a lot of the time when he's going for the takedown. Here's a perfect example. Look at that. I timed that perfectly. You can see he gets his hands together, and that means that not only is he driving through his opponent, but he's also pulling them towards him, which then topples their balance and drives them over. We actually have a better example of that next in the Wonderboy fight. You'll see him up against the fence, and you can really see not only the flexibility of Wonderboy's spine, but also the drive from Tyron Woodley as he really pulls his opponent's hips underneath him and smashing them to the floor. Now, the Jake Shields fight, it really stands out to me, not only because Shields is an excellent wrestler and an excellent grappler, but because he tried to take him down 18 times and failed 18 times.
Wow.
And a part of it is down to the fact that when he covers that distance, immediately Woodley's hips are back. And on this one, you see he catches the kick. Now, this is an important one because this is a similar takedown to what Demian Maia would do. So you can see in this position, I'm just going to pull it back, you can see that Jake Shields' head's on the outside. A lot of the time, like I said, people will wrap that and start to threaten a guillotine, almost automatic. A lot of people don't even realise they're doing it until they're on the canvas and they think, now I'm here with one of the best grapplers in the world, and that was a bad idea. But as this progresses through, you can see the grip on the back of the thigh. He's got a hook on the hamstring. So what he's actually now trying to do is, as Shields is driving into the canvas in that direction, he's trying to pull himself around the opposite way, making it very difficult for Shields. And as you can imagine, with the power and strength that Woodley's got, he's able to find his way back into a dominant position by just purely pulling his hips back, getting underhooks, and then drives them to the fence. This is where he will like to rest as well. So every time Demian Maia tries a takedown, he's going to catch him, he's going to push him up to the fence, and he's going to hold him there for a couple of seconds while he gets his breath. So that's why the work rate and the takedown efforts of Demian Maia are going to be key, because if he can continually threaten that, Woodley doesn't get that opportunity to break.
OK, well, let's have a look at his submission game then.
This is the
Let's take a moment.
playlist. I love this
His
playlist.
submission game.
I've been so...
Yeah.
I learned so... It's like having a jiu-jitsu private from one of the best in the world studying this. There's so many things to talk about with this. I'm going to try not to slow it down too much, but I want to talk about a few really nice things. So this is the Verdum tactic. Verdum Mark Hunt, he plays possum.
I love the phrase.
You're right. Matt Brown goes to the floor, and now he finds himself in a position where he's allowed him to grab a single leg. Pulls quarter guard there. Now, again, Matt Brown feels like he's in a comfortable position. He starts to ground and pound, and then we see this. Look at that, the grip on the ankle. So as he's driving into Matt Brown's hip with his shoulder, he's lifting the ankle, which is taking one of his bases away immediately. And as this progresses, you can see as Matt Brown lands, he realizes he's made a tactical error. He's like, damn, I'm on the floor again, here we go.
With Maia.
With Maia. And then this progression happens, this Turk in the leg. So you'll see him feed the leg underneath, and he triangles them both, which means that he's now trapped the base. So now Matt Brown doesn't have the opportunity to get up to the floor, and then he flattens him out. You're in a world of trouble now. As Neil Magny found out, this is my favourite clip in it. Let me show you this. So he's going for a mounted triangle. That's what he's trying to do. But Neil Magny's very wily. He knows what he's doing. So Demian Maia does this. So Demian Maia knows exactly what's going on here. He knows his opportunities. He knows his options. So you can see he's looking back, and what he's looking for, he's directly looking at this back leg, this back foot of Neil Magny. He's waiting for the moment when he can no longer hold this position because he already knows what he's going on to. Obviously, Neil Magny's not been notified of this because he falls straight into it. So he watches and he's waiting as the legs come over. Here we go. Now, he switches his base, and if I skip forward a little more, you'll be able to... Hang on a minute, let me go back. So, as the leg comes over, Demian Maia switches his base. Now, what he's doing is he's controlling... This is very much a gi jiu-jitsu technique, in my opinion, because he's controlling a wrist. You can see there, he's controlling Neil Magny's wrist, but he's also got his leg on the inside, which we can't see in this shot. So, as he turns, he's going to flatten his leg out, and he's going to drive with his left knee into the shoulder of Neil Magny. You can see him forcing the elbow to the floor, and then drives in and irons him out on the canvas. It's these little nuances of the game that allow him to be ahead of the game of people and to find himself in positions where he can start tying them up, controlling wrists, and then he does a very Gunnar Nelson thing. He starts to strike to open up pockets. So here we go again. Let me just have a look at this. So what he's doing here, he's striking to the top of Neil Magny's head. He's controlling one wrist. He knows this side of the neck's open, so there's no hand fighting on that side. So all he needs to do is occupy this arm in order to feed the arm through. So he's catching him on the top side of the head here. If he's catching him on the chin, Neil Magny's going to guard his chin. Right. So he attacks the top of the head, so Neil Magny guards the top of his head. The next thing that happens is that little window there, he punches through as fast as a cobra, straight in, and then he's got the squeeze. Then he releases the other arm, and then slowly it'll constrict your airways. And using the body triangle as well, you can see that reverse torque. So he's twisting his opponent as well as squeezing on them, which makes for a very uncomfortable situation and a very difficult position to escape. Because you've got to think, if he rolls over onto the side of the triangle to escape that, he's deeper into the choke. So it's the lesser of two evils. Which one do you want? Same thing against Carlos Condit here. He's got the body triangle on. He's got the arm going across the opposite way, so he's twisting his opponent as well. You can see the strain on the belly, the stomach of Carlos Condit in that position as he's being squeezed. An awful position to get caught in, especially with the fence up against your back as well. There's very little movement there. Beautiful to watch. Yeah. Boa constrictor, cobra. We need a few more snake references before we end
all
this episode. All the reptiles.
All of them. Another question for you. So Demian Maia has gone on the record, well, it's official, it was a 5-week training camp, which this is a title fight. He feels like he's shortchanged himself. It might even be the shortest training camp he's had for a UFC fight. However, in my thoughts, he's never going to turn into Lomachenko, and Woodley's never going to turn into, let's say, Gary Tonon in 15 weeks, 6 months.
No.
So does it matter that this is a shorter training camp with the guys at the level of their careers that they're at?
I don't think it is. I really don't think, because they're settled into their career. They're settled into their game. We're not going to see Demian Maia come out and try and kickbox with Woodley. I don't think we're going to see Woodley try and take him down and submit him. He might try and take him down and control him, but then it's very much a case of, does the top game wrestling beat the bottom game jiu-jitsu?
Right.
And that's really a coin toss, because we've never seen these two compete before.
Yeah.
But you're right, they don't have a lot of time to really add new things to their game. But ever since Demian Maia has moved to welterweight, he's had his eye on the top 5. He knows who's there. He knows who he needs to take out and what he needs to do. And he's confident that his jiu-jitsu skills are enough to beat everybody in the division.
Yeah.
And one other thing, after his last fight, he ran straight over to Dana, he got on his knees and he said, "Give me a title fight."
Yes.
So even though it wasn't confirmed, in his head he's already working towards Tyron Woodley. So I think he's already in his head starting to game plan. Even if he's actually only preparing for 5 weeks, the mental preparation started way before.
Well, I'm so pleased that he's getting this opportunity. He's been crying for it for a long time. I know that the diehard have been like, give him his chance. It is here. What a great fight.
What a great fight.
And we have another title fight, which we're going to be discussing on this episode, and that is for the women's featherweight title. Now, Tonya Evinger, Cris Cyborg. I think we need to spend some time talking about Evinger.
Yeah.
She likes to make it filthy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, she has the kind of style that I believe can really trouble Cris Cyborg. She is, if you guys don't know, she is the Invicta FC bantamweight champion, or she's just relinquished that belt. She was very unhappy in doing so. But fighting up a little bit, obviously, at featherweight, but she just has a very strong, imposing style, which could potentially suffocate Cris Cyborg.
Yeah. Filthy is the best way of putting it. And you'll hear her corner team shouting that as well when, during
filthy.
the fight. Yeah. Get filthy. She's mean, she's tenacious, she's got a grinding style, and she pushes people in every aspect of their game.
Hasn't lost since 2011.
Wow, that's impressive. You see, so here, look, she's got some striking, she's got some punching power, but she does like to get her hands on people and wrestle. She's got a good wrestling pedigree. Look at this, beautiful. Right-handers, she's closing the distance. And check this one out as well against Colin Schneider. A really short left hook, right on the chin, but immediately shows her game. Instead of chasing to finish the fight with strikes, she clinches and slams her to the floor. And her takedowns are very, very good, very smooth, in particular that outside reap that she uses a lot. You can see her using it against Gomez there, and again a second time, and immediately passes to side control and pushes her into the fence. There's a grinding aspect to her game.
Sure.
Look at this. Finds herself in a very fortuitous position for ground and pound. She just makes it work. That's the thing I like about Tonya Evinger. Because she's aggressive and because she's scrappy, she can flow with the fight. She can find her way in. Let's have a look at this. This is my favourite clip in this fight. So this is one of the best things I've seen her do. It's a really, really nice arm drag, which we don't see people using a great deal in MMA. So in this position, let me just explain to you what's going on. So, all right, let me skip back just a little bit. So you can see that Tonya Evinger is controlling Aldana's arm. She's got an overhook. She's also controlling her wrist, which you can't see because it's behind her body. But what I do want to point out is that, so here's Aldana's arm here. So that's across Tonya Evinger's arm.
Yeah.
She's controlling her wrist and she's controlling her inside bicep as well. So she's got full lock on that. She's also driving her into the fence. Now, as she steps out and creates space, you'll see her drag Aldana's arm across her midsection. So she pulls her off the fence, beautiful work. Pulls her off the fence, you can see the grip on the inside bicep, which is important. There it is, look. So she's got the control on the wrist there. That's one element of control that's very important. The other one is on the inside bicep. Let's just put that over on your side, John. So there are two aspects of control that she's got here. She's dragging the arm, she's controlling the bicep. Now, if she then starts to drive forward, there's got forward momentum here as well. You'll also see her use that nice outside reap that she uses. She wraps the leg and drives her forward. The beautiful arm drag that she does.
She's got nowhere to post as well.
Nowhere to post. And then when she's on the floor, again, it's that filthy style of fighting. She makes it work. She finds ways to be hurtful and to be mean. She's not interested in taking you down and submitting you right away. She wants to punish you and make it uncomfortable. She wants to kneel on your face. She wants to stand on your face. She wants to elbow you. She wants to... Everything that works, everything that makes it unpleasant for her opponent is what she's going to employ. And here again, she finds top position and she just beats her opponent up. She beats them up to the point where they want to give up. They want to give her the submission. So then when she finds herself in a position where she's got an arm bar locked out or a rear naked choke, they're ready to tap immediately. This is really nice. Just look at the control on Cindy Dandois's far leg. Again, makes it work, figures it out on the spot. That's not something you can drill. That's an opportunity that you have to spot in the moment and make the most of it. And she's very creative, and she's got a good collegiate wrestling background. She's got great submissions as well. But it's a mental approach.
Yes.
It's her attitude.
Yeah.
It's that mean grinding style, which we've really not seen anybody step in there against Cyborg with that kind of mentality. And you've got to think that someone that's going to walk through Cyborg's dangerous ranges and get her hands on her has to be someone with that kind of confidence and mentality. Yeah,
Kunitskaya, her last fight, had her in all kinds of horrible positions.
Yeah.
She kept coming.
Yeah.
You know, her leg was bent back the wrong way at some point.
Yeah.
She didn't show a thing.
Kept going with the toe hold instead.
And kept going for it. Yeah, she's got a really great attitude to the game. She's really fun to watch. But someone who is also fun to watch is Cris Cyborg. And do you know what I like about her is she is still to the day working on new stuff. We saw her working out with Clarissa Shields. That was on her Instagram, a US standout boxer. Brilliant stuff. So she's been working on those elements, those fast hands, and I think she's going to want to show that.
Oh, yeah. Not only is she one of the most aggressive and explosive and powerful female athletes that we've seen in the sport, she's an excellent Thai boxer. She's old school shoot box.
Yeah.
But now working with Jason Perillo, we've seen some new elements to her game, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But the power in her right hand is what we need to focus on. And she has a really nice tactic of shifting off to the side. She finds herself in a very safe pocket here, because a lot of the time our opponents tend to throw straight punches or they throw big wild hooks. She slips right to the outside and throws it's almost like a hook overhand. It's a very strange punch, but she uses it very consistently. And as you can see here, as the arm goes over her head, she slipped out the way to safety and she lands the punch right on the chin. Really clean. And you've got to think, you don't need to be punched too many times by Cris Cyborg before you want to turn and start tapping the canvas immediately. She has got kicks as well, but ultimately she wants you to back you up against the fence and start working those big, powerful punches. She'll throw a knee in there as well to the midsection to bring your hands down, but then continue to attack the head. She wants to get these fights finished as quick as possible. And because people know what to expect in a Cyborg fight, she wants to deliver that every time. And even when she came over to the UFC, it was a slightly more technical approach because she knows that the levels jumped up slightly, but she showed great technical ability, good efforts in cutting the octagon down, and again, landing that clean right hook that she likes. Beautiful work, inside kick, jab, always working. Nice classical Muay Thai training. But look at this, look how she paints her into the corner, forces her up against the fence so there's nowhere to run from those powerful shots. And Leslie Smith is one of the toughest women that we have in this division.
High volume striker.
Exactly. Just couldn't withstand the power of Cris Cyborg. And same with Lena Landsberg, who got out of the first round. But this combination here is 16 strikes with nothing coming back.
That's ridiculous.
You just don't dare drop your hands because you know as soon as you do, something vicious is going to come back in your direction. Beautiful knee to the midsection there. And even if her opponent is not worn down and broken by the striking, she'll start taking them down and beating them up on the floor. Now, to get a top position on Tonya Evinger is going to be quite difficult, in my opinion, and also to take her down, especially because these are less technical and more physicality and brute strength. Yeah. But you just do not want to be in a position where this woman can capitalise on her strengths, because when she does, it's usually a very short night.
Could be her crowning moment in the UFC. Two Brazilians as well going after titles. That's going to be big for that nation.
Yeah. A lot of noise in South America this weekend.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, this is massive. What a card. This is just ridiculous. I mean, the biggest event this year. Cannot wait for it. If you haven't checked out our other episode where we look at the main event, then what are you doing? You need to look at that. DC versus Jones 2. Thank you very much for everyone who got involved on the socials. Keep the conversation going using the hashtag #InsideTheOctagon. From Dan and I, thank you very much for watching. We will be back with UFC 215. Until then, take care.